Hi everyone, welcome to our webinar today. I'm Tanya Mitchell along with Teri Miller, and today we're going to discuss 5 things every parent should do now to ensure a successful school year for your child.
Absolutely.
And we're really talking about next school year because This one is just about over. Are your kids out yet?
My kids are done. Yesterday was the last day, but this is exactly the time of year that I'm thinking, what can we do to help things go more smoothly next year?
Yes. So we're going to be discussing some ideas for you to do right now, as well as ways to just improve your summer, make it a worthwhile summer. So let's just start. I am Tanya Mitchell, and I work with LearningRx, Chief Research and Development Officer here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I have 4 children. We all live here, and I have different things going on in my own family. So I've had academic issues, reading difficulties, ADHD, brain injury, and concussions.
Wow.
And sort of a perfectionist child who never wanted to try anything new because she was really good at what she did.
Right.
And so sort of a whiner when trying something new. So I've had a full spectrum.
Yeah.
And Teri, go ahead and introduce your family here.
I've got 9 kiddos. They're not all still living at home though, so it's not quite that crazy. That's actually an old picture. I've actually got 2 grandsons now. I am dealing with the same thing. I've got kiddos with a variety of different learning issues. I've got a couple of them that are super advanced, and we have to deal with those challenges when they get bored. I've got an Eeyore personality kiddo, kind of perfectionist Eeyore.
Yes.
And then my youngest has some pretty significant struggles, auditory processing struggles. So lots that we want to improve. She had a rough first grade. I want second grade to be better.
Right. And one of the great things that we get to do, since you work in the Research Institute, and I like research, is read research on a daily basis.
Yep.
And so we picked out some research that we came upon, and you actually wrote about, that we found interesting for ourselves.
Right.
Because we're in the same situation as other moms around the country.
Right.
So today we're going to discuss these 5 things. First, ways to boost GPA today. That's grade point average. Maybe a little bit for next week if you're still in finals.
Yeah, seriously. If kids are still studying and taking tests, listen up. This can make a difference. We've got some good science.
Yes. Skills besides attention that are linked to ADHD. This is very interesting data. We probably have the largest database of test results for people diagnosed with ADHD. I've never heard of a larger database. And maybe it shouldn't be called an attention deficit, according to our research.
Very interesting.
So we're going to go through that. How to decrease student anxiety, and we were just talking about this. So she has her studies here that we're going to go through. The incredible task called reading and why so many people struggle. And we do have an excellent reading program. I'm going to tell you a little bit about LearningRx just to help sort of qualify our information so you know what we do on a daily basis. And then number 5, effective ways parents can improve learning. And we do have a very special offer today. We've never offered it before. And we have some giveaways at the end.
Nice.
So let's get started. By the way, if you do have any questions, we will have a Q&A time at the end. So feel free to chat your questions. There's a little question comment area where you can put your questions. And at the end, if we think it's a question that will be helpful to everyone attending, then we'll answer that question. If we think it's more of an individual question that might be good to answer for you afterwards, then we'll do it that way.
Right.
So just a little bit about LearningRx. We are a one-on-one brain training program. We have clinical and center locations all across the United States. And you can get an idea of where we're located. We do have other training options too if you do not see a center located near you. And we also have licensees all across the world. So our programs are in over we're in 47 countries right now.
That's amazing.
It is
really
amazing. It's been a really incredible part about what we do. So the programs that we offer focus on 7 core cognitive skills, and these are the same skills that would make up someone's IQ or their fluid intelligence.
Right.
So we have different procedures that help develop these skills. All of our training includes a one-on-one component, and we're going to talk, I don't know if we talk about it in this webinar, but it's very important and crucial to getting real skill and develop real skill. And then the brain is trainable and changeable from when you're a little kid, a preschooler, all the way up to our oldest client who actually was 95.
That's so great.
So just realize it doesn't matter what your age is, you know, and really when you see results, what your diagnosis is, if you had a diagnosis. But from most of you and why you're here today, it might be because you don't know. You don't know what's going on, and you know, you want to learn more.
Right.
Our programs that we've offered are based on over 35 years of research. The first study we did, a randomized control trial, which is a new standard and definitely really important if you're looking for help for your child, to pick a program that has peer-reviewed research behind it.
Right.
We've been really excited with your Gibson Institute and Dr. Amy Moore.
Yeah, we didn't even say that.
Oh, we're going.
Yeah.
She's on the next slide there.
Okay.
We've helped complete over 20 plus studies. We're really looking forward to our future. Our first study, randomized control trial, had a 21-point gain, which is really big.
That's kind of higher than normal.
It's higher than normal. Our average is 15 points, and we're going to show you why that would have any meaning to you.
Right.
And then if you want to know more about, so I work with LearningRx. If you want to know about our institute, Cognitive Research Institute, you can go to gibsonresearch.org, and they're doing these amazing things. So we're looking at cognitive skills all different ways, including MRI scans, quality of life, different tests used with different professionals. So we're sort of taking this big, huge approach to cognitive training, cognitive testing, and research. So very exciting stuff that we do here. So that's just a little bit background on us. Okay, ready for your first?
How to boost GPA.
How to boost GPA, our first big item here. Oh, here you go. This is the equation.
Okay.
A plus B equals better GPA.
What is it though?
Right. Okay.
What's the algebra? Let's find out.
I'm going to give it to you. It's physical activity plus sleep minus screen time, and a lot of this is very new data, equals better GPA.
Right. There's a good amount of research out there. Many, many studies. If you would like more information about those specific studies, again, you can post that question and we can get actual resources to you that you can print out or refer to. But there's a lot of research to substantiate how impacting physical activity, more quality sleep, and less screen time improves GPA.
How much sleep?
Well, it depends on age.
You have a graph here.
I do. I have a graph. Well, a great resource is the National Sleep Foundation. They have all kinds of infographics and things. But teens, the interesting thing is research is showing that most teens are not even close to getting the sleep they need. Teens need 8 to 10 hours, 9 hours. Teens are not getting that much. They're up late at night, texting, whatever, hanging out with friends. They're up early to go to school.
Right. There was a really interesting research, I think came out last year, where it said, you know, school should start at like 10, but we can't handle that today. We can't handle that for the teens today, but research showing when a teenager really wakes up is usually a few hours after they've been in school. So anyway, go on to the research you have.
A really great research study came out recently from the Society for the Teaching of Psychology. And again, if you want the specifics, we can get those to you. But the researchers did something called an 8-hour sleep challenge, and it was during finals time. And they challenged these kids to get 8 hours of sleep, even if that meant they were studying a little bit less. And what happened is the kids that got more adequate sleep, at least 8 hours, had better grades, better GPA. Better sleep, better GPA.
Do you really have different bedtimes? Are these your bedtimes?
Yeah, this is a little kind of a chart I did.
Okay.
Because another thing about going to bed for little kids is you have to understand sleep latency, and that is the amount of time it takes for the body to actually fall asleep. And that's average 10 to 20 minutes. And so if you're sending your kiddo to bed at 8:30, 9 o'clock, they're not going to be really sleeping for another half hour, 20 minutes.
What do we know about screen time?
Okay, screen time, particularly in the evening, research shows that it is a brain stimulant. And so it is going to disrupt sleep, not even just when a kiddo or an adult, all of us, not just when you go to sleep, but even later in the night, you're not going to sleep as deeply when you've had that brain stimulation just before bedtime. So research shows, scientists suggest, turn off the screens, no screen time at all, minimum of 2 hours before bedtime for all ages.
Including 40-year-olds?
Even 50-year-olds.
Okay, well, if I need to get better grades. So that, maybe this next week, or I think my school, my kids get out of school next week, but maybe it's no screen time, just to help with their final test scores and everything. And then we always talk about like rewarding screen time. Screen time would be, of course, your phones, iPhones, your smartphones, your digital games, video games.
Yeah, TV
seems to have, and this was done even with the meta-analysis, seems to have a real impact on people.
Yes.
So
exercise, physical activity is very important too. Exercise creates something, aerobic exercise creates in the brain BDNF, brain-derived neurotropic factor. And again, a fantastic study that came out from the Journal of Physical Activity and Health really substantiates that relationship between physical activity, better sleep, and improved academic achievement. And so it's a great study. Again, we can get that information.
Yeah, there are tons and tons of studies on how physical activity is helpful to the brain, helpful to learning, helpful to not having dementia later on, just keeping your brain healthy. But we need to move because we have a lot to cover. So that we probably took a little too long on that, but hopefully
it's the most important.
Yes. Okay. So the next one are skills behind attention that are linked to ADHD. And so as I mentioned before, that after looking at our database of over 5,000 clients, now in our new results report, I think there's over 6,000 clients that had been diagnosed with ADHD. We have some really groundbreaking findings that everyone should know, and that is, so these are your learning skills, right? So this is based on the Horn-Carroll-Cattell model of intelligence. There's 4 major areas here, and so when you're looking at how well someone processes information, how well they think, when you do testing, you would want to test all these areas to find out which skills are strong, which skills are weak. And these are the same areas that would derive IQ scores. And you would also use these type of test results if you were ever going to diagnose. So this is the same type of testing that a professional would do.
IQ generally also includes a language component. So
yeah, it depends. So we're talking about, well, IQ score is a quotient number, but the intelligence, fluid intelligence. Okay.
Yes.
So we have here 5,416 clients diagnosed with ADHD that came to us, and so we test everybody's skills because we want to know where we can help. But the findings were really incredible, and that is, you see broad attention score all the way there to the right is low, but there were 3 skills that were lower than their attention score. And we did actually a peer-reviewed poster on this
Dr. Amy
research. And you can see here that broad attention is the black line here. And so you have working memory, processing speed, and long-term memory. This is looking at someone's lifespan all the way from 4 years old to over 40. And attention was not the weakest skill. Right. It is possible, attention, it may not, it shouldn't be called ADHD possibly.
It's interesting.
So attention is really the symptom, not the cause.
Right. These people in the study that were reviewed, they were self-reported attention problems or actual diagnosis. And so even for people that are just struggling with attention problems and maybe haven't been diagnosed, it's so interesting to see that if you just are beating them with attention, 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 we got to work on that, we may be completely missing the root issue.
Yeah, and if it's not really an attention issue and it's a processing speed or long-term issue,
Memory.
And you give them attention training,
It's not going to make a difference.
you've missed it. Yeah. Right. Number 3, how to decrease student anxiety. And this was a write-up that you did several months ago on a really interesting study, which showed what?
Mindfulness is simply the practice of being present in the present, feeling yourself breathe, being aware of things around you, kind of a calming practice. And the practice of mindfulness or meditation really, really measurably reduces anxiety in students, in adults, even in children. And there's, again, lots of research to support that.
Right, and this was a college study, and so they had 2 groups of students. One went through mindfulness training, one did not go through mindfulness training. Right. And what they found was that the group that went through mindfulness training had less anxiety.
Right. Measurable difference and reduction in cortisol levels. So also differences in the physical body, stress chemicals that are going to injure your brain. And so we want to reduce those stress chemicals, and practicing mindfulness can make a big difference.
That's good. And, you know, that they had their own program. This is something that I like to do, audible books. And this is something I've taken my own kids through. It's called the Happiness Advantage.
I'm so going to do this with my kids.
It's so good. I mean, and whenever they start sort of, you know, maybe whining or complaining or maybe getting a little anxious, I go right to this. So this was the Happiness Advantage by Sean Aker. And these were his suggestions that you would do for 21 days to see how it happened. And that included 3 gratitude statements, journaling, at least 1 positive event, exercise, which you've talked about, meditation, and then some random acts of kindness. So
great.
Sometimes I started my dinner with like, so tell me your random act of kindness today.
Oh, I love it.
And I mean, besides it helping them, it helps me feel like a good parent, right?
Yes, yeah. You are.
Oh, wow, you did that today. That's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I want to copy that.
Right. Okay, so now we're going to go into the incredible task called reading and why so many people struggle. And this has been, so my father is Dr. Ken Gibson. He's the founder of LearningRx. This has been his lifelong journey, was helping people that struggle. And all these other things that we do have just been really great, you know, things that have happened, but this was our major goal, and that it's because he struggled to read when he was a kid. Very, very smart. He was in the 99th percentile for many different areas. There was one area that he struggled in, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. But this is a real crisis here in the U.S., and English is a hard language.
Yeah.
And you know, 64% of 4th graders are not proficient. This is the nation's report card.
Right.
And this hasn't changed for many, many years, even though in some ways we know better now. They had a national reading panel, spent hundreds of millions of dollars to find out why people fail to read. And you would think that there'd be a bigger improvement, a bigger boost nowadays than there was.
But isn't that the problem? We don't understand what's the underlying cause.
Yes, and I think one of the big issues is they've really overall taken a knowledge approach to a cognitive problem.
Right.
So if we look at reading, this is the cycle of reading and comprehension, and it looks messy because it's multitask. Yes. So you start
multifaceted.
With multifaceted is a better word. It's good to have you. So, so if you're reading, you first have to see the lines, the shapes. Then you have to understand, oh, that little squiggly is an N. Then you have to come up with what's the likely sound. If it's like an OA or something, it could be several sounds, right? Then you have to recognize the word. Once you recognize the word, you have to be able to pronounce it correctly. And then you have to do that to you have to understand the meaning of the word, right? like faceted. And then you have to take that word and connect it with other words, maintain that information while you read a new word. And so this sort of shows what happens in that cycle, the blue and green being sort of the correct cycle to happen, and then the red and yellow when people have different difficulties.
Right.
So, and let's just look at one of the skills needed to read well, and that would be something called a word attack skill. This is being able, and these are nonsense words. So if you just turn to this and you went, whoa, what is that? They're nonsense words. But so there's skills called decoding and encoding, and this is a knowledge skill that's important. I'm going to show you the cognitive in a minute. But if you were going to read those words, what would you say?
I would say clipsed and mere crunchus and frumption.
Good, and I would accept all of those. And sometimes there are different ways to say different combinations. Very confusing language. And so if we look at reading proficiency, we would see this sort of as that triangle of reading, right? So there are sensory motor skills, but research has shown that it's really not a sensory motor issue.
Interesting.
It's not really a tracking issue for the most part. You know, the overwhelming majority of people that have difficulty reading have a cognitive deficiency.
Right. So that's not an actual visual problem.
Right.
It's the underlying cognitive
skill.
Right,
and a lot of times they'll say, oh, dyslexia, that's reversals. We know that's not the case anymore.
Right.
A very small percentage of people that have dyslexia have reversal issues. A very small percentage of people have like words that float. It's really a combination of all these different things they're trying to do at the same time, and they lack certain cognitive skills that they need.
Right.
Then there's word attack skills, which we showed you. Then reading fluency, which is part of that comprehension, being able to read quickly,
right,
and still remember what you're reading. And then after all of those are in place, then you start looking at reading comprehension, which has its own pyramid.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
it's so complex. It's no wonder.
Right. Reading fluency, working memory, and inferential reasoning. So in other words, if I'm reading about the pyramids, and I've never seen a pyramid before, you know, understanding that's sort of that world knowledge, or understanding maybe a cultural saying and how that plays into what you're reading, which would be the inferential reasoning.
Okay.
So you see this whole list here, right? So in what we do, we've been able, again, to look at test results, to go ahead and give someone a full test result to really see why they're struggling.
And it's going to be different for every person.
It's different for every person. You can see here, though, this red line, that's low average. That's your 40th percentile, which means if you score at the 40th percentile, 60 people your age have scored higher than you, and 39 people your age have scored lower than you.
Okay.
And you can see here, this is over 2,000 kids diagnosed with dyslexia. Average age is 11.9. So auditory processing is like the skill everyone's been focused on, right? Because it's super important to a sound-based language. You must be able to analyze sounds within a syllable and distinguish those sounds. Unfortunately, it's not the only issue.
Right.
And so even though our reading programs in school have focused a little bit more on phonemic awareness, it's not the only issue.
Because we've got you can see it right there. We've got underlying memory problems, underlying processing speed, cognitive skills that are not being addressed.
Yes, and so you have to take this full cognitive approach. If you have someone in your life who is struggling with reading, or who reads slow, or who does not comprehend, it could be for all those different reasons that I showed you. You have to go get tested to find out where to focus.
Right.
Because extra knowledge in school doesn't work. Extra phonemic awareness training in school obviously didn't work for the whole country. You have to take a cognitive approach to reading.
And too many parents just want to like beat their kid over the head with a book, and it's just not going to get us there.
And there's still, I still get write-ups where it will say, just read to your kids. That it's great to read to your kids. It's not going to solve their reading problem. It's not going to be the answer, because it's not one skill. It's not being around reading. Okay, you don't learn algebra because there's an algebra book in the room.
Right.
There's things, these underlying things that need to be taken care of, and it's a cluster. What we have found, and this is with majority of clients that would come to us. It's a cluster of weak cognitive skills. You cannot focus on one. You must test and then train all these different skills.
Yes.
And so this would be our top 6 list, I guess, because there's 6 of why most reading programs fail. And I think we've covered some of these, but just to solidify this, you have to, the reading program fails because it treats the problem as a lack of knowledge. It ignores weak cognitive skills. It instructs instead of trains. That's really important if you have a problem reader, because once you've created a poor reading habit, even if you're given a really good reading program, if you don't have those cognitive skills and a way to sort of use these new skills, it's not going to work.
Right.
English by itself is a very difficult language. Way too many sight words. We may have, I don't know if we have 300,000, 500,000 words within our language. A lot of those have to be memorized.
Right.
And then there's all these rules, and the problem with rules in our reading programs is they only work part of the time.
Right, because they're not always applicable to every word.
So that's bad. Okay?
So many
rules only
issues.
working 60% of the time. It's not a good rule ever. And then if they do have a reading program, they'll use these real words, which does not require the problem reader to create these new habits. All right, that's a lot of information on reading.
Yeah.
We can do a whole webinar just on reading.
Yes.
Okay. So how can you as a parent effectively improve your child's learning? So 3 things. If your child struggles, you must find out why they're struggling.
Right.
You must find out their core cognitive testing. And in just a minute, we're going to have a special offer for you that we've never offered before.
So underlying skills, number 1.
Yes.
Find out what's going on in their brains, what cognitive skills are strong, what cognitive skills are weak. You've got to know what's wrong before you can begin to solve the problem.
Yes, and what you're seeing is a symptom. It's not the cause. Just like attention, right? You see your child's not focusing. It may not be the cause. It may be some other things. And then you need to train those weak skills. Research shows over and over and over again that those skills are trainable and changeable, and that accommodation and compensatory measures don't work. So we have a very exciting story for you on L. And L is interesting. We don't always get to have this experience with people that we work with. But Elle went to a LearningRx center in 3rd grade, and they followed up with her 5 years later, and then they followed up with her 10 years later. And it's just such a great story, so we wanted to share it with you.
Tutoring might not solve the problem, but something called brain training might be what your kids need. Take a look.
Ready? Go.
Blue, yellow, black.
It's repetitive, almost chant-like.
Blue, yellow.
And it's changing the way the brain functions.
It used to be believed that the skills we were kind of born with would just stay with us through life, and there wasn't really any way to affect them. But that's not true. You can actually change those underlying mental skills.
It's all happening at LearningRx, a center where kids don't do homework. Instead, they work on the root cause of their learning struggle.
The student that is struggling to remember multiplication tables, most likely their issue is weaker long-term memory. And that can also show up as reading comprehension issues, test-taking struggles. Tutoring definitely helps, obviously, but it's really more treating the symptom and kind of putting a Band-Aid on the problem.
We knew something needed to be done. She was really struggling. She couldn't read.
As a 3rd grader, Renee Remdy's daughter, Elle, was failing, and tutoring after school wasn't helping in the long term.
You can imagine what homework was like. It was a struggle. It was a battle. Elle was always fighting us. She never wanted to do it because it was so difficult for her. She was missing core classes like science and social studies, and nothing was helping. She just kept falling farther and farther behind.
When you think about training, think about going to the gym, right? And if you're working with a personal trainer, that trainer is really encouraging, is going to push you, and is like, let's go, let's go. That's a lot of what's happening here is we're training these underlying mental skills. We're actually doing very intense mental exercises in a one-on-one setting that are targeting each individual child's cognitive or mental weaknesses.
And it's hard not to notice how loud it is in here. It's for good reason. Number one, classrooms are loud. And number two, it's all about concentration.
The trainers really push you really hard, and they try to distract you and try to literally just train your brain and make you focus and work really hard.
That training paid off. Elle gained 3 grade levels in just 1 year.
We don't have to struggle with her homework anymore. She's completely doing everything on her own. Her teachers love her. She's getting straight A's. I think she had 1 B this quarter.
I was actually enjoying a book that I read, and it was like pretty much like watching a movie because I was excited and I just wanted to finish it. But before that, I didn't want to pick up any books. So I saw the results. 7,
That's right. Pick
8.
them up.
Okay.
Nice. There you go.
We first met Elle Remdy as a young teen when she had completed the LearningRx program. Now she's making big plans for her future, and that's because that brain training is long-lasting. Take a look. 17-year-old Elle Remdy is a senior in high school, already taking college courses. But 5 years ago, we met her as a tween.
I just didn't understand it at all. I would just look at it and not get it.
Elle could not read, and her mom, Renee, heard it from teachers time and time again.
They said I was expecting too much of her, and with her learning disability, it was an unreasonable expectation for her to read.
I have a really good memory, so when they would coach me through a sentence, I would just memorize what they said and be like, oh yeah, this, and I would just say it back, and I would memorize a complete book and just read it.
She had a tutor, and teachers read to her instead of Elle reading to them. But her mom found LearningRx, and in 3rd grade, Elle began the intensive program.
It's building new connections in the brain that weren't there before.
For 6 months, 6 days a week, Elle's brain was trained, and then a turning point.
And it was that 4th grade year that she made the most astounding progress and essentially gained 4 years of reading skills in 1 year.
Elle will now be a freshman at St. Olaf College in the fall. She wants to major in theater and music.
I want to be an actress, potentially on Broadway, something like that.
She knows without LearningRx, her life would be very different.
I would have struggled so much in school that it would have been a lot harder. Theater, you're reading lines. If I couldn't read, how would I do what I'm doing?
I knew the school, unfortunately, just didn't have the tools to help her. And if I hadn't found LearningRx, I don't know that Elle would be able to do what she's doing today. I don't think she would have been able to go to college.
Really?
I'm certain she wouldn't have been able to.
But now Renee and Elle both know the sky is the limit.
She excels in just about everything she does. It may not be her passion, but there isn't anything that my daughter can't do.
I love her story so much.
So inspiring.
Yeah. And, I know that we're all here today because we want our kids to do better.
Mm-hmm.
We want them to live out maybe their passions in life. We want them to be successful in what they do. And when you see that they're struggling and not able to achieve what we hope, what we hope they achieve, it affects you as a mom.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're here today because your child or a family member is struggling with reading or learning, memorizing, paying attention, homework, which is a trigger word for a lot of parents. The best thing of summer, no homework, right? For everybody. And then just processing, if they're just very slow. Just know there's something that is causing those struggles. And if you know how, if you know why, then you can determine the next step. Right? So these are the steps that have changed my life and I believe would change other people's life. And that is that first, when someone has difficulty, you must first understand it's not the symptom. Right? That there's an underlying cause.
Just like we saw with that ADHD attention struggle study, that attention was the symptom, but there were other underlying struggles.
Right. Number 2, you must determine the cause. You have to know what you're going to try to help. Mm-hmm. You have to know why they're struggling. And then the third is to treat the cause rather than the symptom, not accept accommodation and compensatory measures when we know as a society now that the brain is trainable.
I'm going to just give an example.
Yeah.
So I know you've got a kiddo that's been through this program and this process as well. Yeah.
Three
Okay.
kids. Yeah.
Well, so my oldest son has as well, and we spent years and years and years. He had an IEP, individual education plan, lots of compensation, and ultimately what happened, he did get into college, had compensation programs there, and ultimately it didn't play out into his adult life as strong. He wasn't as strong cognitively as he should have been, as he could have been. And so as a young man, we were able to get him the testing to understand what were the underlying cognitive issues and then treat those underlying issues. And the difference was astounding. I mean, hey, it sounds little, but he moved out on his own. He moved out of the house. He'd been one of those boomerang kiddos. He got a great job. He just started thriving in simple ways, conversation, driving, living on his own, big life skills that were being hurt because we were not addressing those underlying cognitive issues.
Yeah.
Made all the difference.
Yes, and that's good. And so we want to introduce you to the Gibson test. This is a very special test. For many different reasons. And so these are just some of the graphs on the Gibson test that I wanted to share. So the first step with helping, my child was to get the test result and find out why. Because even with all the expertise that I have, I can have an inkling of why they might be struggling. But until you have it on paper and know, I wouldn't even know how to help them.
Right.
Why, and you just take behavior too. Why is my kid such a bully? Or why won't they sit down there and do their studies? What's getting in your way?
Right.
Because, I would say we all want you to have good grades, right? Because when you have good grades, you have all the freedom. So what's going on?
Right.
And so, this is just part of the Gibson test. We're going to talk more about this, but you can see here, we're testing all those different areas. So long-term memory, working memory, visual processing, logic and reasoning, processing speed, auditory processing, which we know was that #1 skill they focused on, word attack and attention as a whole. And then we do have a composite score for IQ, but the important part of this result is actually these sub-scores, these different skills. And look at this kid. This kid has a reading problem. Auditory processing is at the 90 percentile. So what does that do for me, someone who's an expert in reading, right? Before, if I would look at just the research on reading, I'd say there's no reason for this kid to struggle. But when you look at all these different skills, you can see she doesn't have a lot of strengths. Right? She's average, and she doesn't have a lot of strengths to build on, to help her learn to read. And so these are some different graphs. Let me show you some other things that you get. Attention skills. So this is really interesting because we all know that when you go and take a test, you can have a bad test day, right?
Right.
So you could go in, or you could have like a really good test day where I've had kids come home before and say, yeah, I guessed I did really well.
Right.
I can't believe I got this score. So when you're trying to get a good test result, you want to match it with observation. And one of the unique parts of the Gibson test is that you go into this Gibson test and you're able to take this observational survey of 64 questions. And when you can take the observations that you see as a parent, and combine those with a cognitive test result, now you have a much clearer finding of where you want to start. And so this is someone's observational data mixed with their test data.
Right.
And this is, not easy to do on your own, but we have a special offer that's going to help with this as well.
This particular test, as a researcher, the pages you just saw a second ago, those two different slides showing the results that you get from the Gibson test, that is why as a researcher I favor using this assessment. Part of my job with Gibson Research is that I do all the neuropsych testing for our research participants.
Yeah, so you've used many tests.
Many. Woodcock-Johnson, IQ test, DCAFs, MOCA, just things that I won't bore you with all the names of, but this one is my favorite because the results are so easy to understand. You get this wonderful report right away. The parent or the student can understand what's going on. Some of the testing my son had, we would get a report, thousands and thousands of dollars, and hours and hours of testing, and we'd get a report, and I'm in this world and I could not understand it. I mean, this is my work and I could not understand the report. It was so complicated.
Yeah.
So this one's great.
Yes. And so you get this report, you get this chart. This looks at those percentiles. Like I said, if you have 100 people standing in a line, where does your child or someone you love test compared to other people their age? If they're under 16, an age equivalent graph, which we keep because parents love it so much.
Yeah.
So it's not like the ultimate when you're trying to compare pre and post test results, but it's very helpful for the parent in understanding because,
right.
I have 4 kids. I have different ages of kids. So I sort of compare kids based on their age anyway, right? So this is our deal, right? So today we're going to offer, and we do have a bonus for you, a very special offer. But this cognitive testing would normally be anywhere from $600 to $1,600
or more.
And
it's worth it.
Yeah,
that's the thing. It is worth it. I mean, how could I put a price tag on my son's future, on my son's ability to have hope for a great life? I mean, it's absolutely worth it, even if it's thousands of dollars.
Yes.
So.
And it's only $147.
That's crazy. That's just,
it is.
That's amazing.
This is a peer-reviewed test, and it has a very good, like if you want to know like how reliable a test is, its reliability is the same as any major intelligence type of testing or cognitive skills testing available online. It's a very comprehensive test, and we want to see all those different areas. We're offering a 30-day money-back guarantee. So
awesome.
If you're not satisfied with the Gibson test or the report, you're going to get your money back. This is an online test you can take at home, and I'm going to explain just a little bit about how to make sure you get the best test result.
Right.
And then you're going to have a 5-page full comprehensive report with all those charts. But there's more.
But wait, there's more.
I like doing that. I always wanted to do one of those. Wait. And this actually has a couple of those, but wait, there's more. So we understand that looking at this data can be confusing as to like, what is your next step? What do I do now that I have this, now that I know, what do I do? So this deal, the 147 deal, which has a value all by its own. So if you ever go to the doctor or go get advice or anything, that can cost you $300, right? So this test is going to come with a consultation.
That's so great.
Yeah.
So that'll help you understand. The report will help you clearly see your kid's underlying cognitive skills. But getting that extra help will show you, what can I do next? What are some things that we can do to improve these struggling cognitive skills?
Yes. And what I love about the consultation process that we use is we take a really sort of an advocate approach, because we understand these skills. We are experts into how to improve these skills, and that is included for $147 for testing. And we'll discuss some different training options for you. So, but remember, I have this additional bonus that we've never offered before. And so we're gonna offer that in just a moment. We were able to, this is a parent who went through the testing process, and he wanted to share with you all how he felt about the Gibson test.
Before LearningRx training for Sierra, it was mainly confidence because she really couldn't do the work. There were a lot of tears, a lot of tantrums. After the brain training, we just saw immediate results with her confidence, doing just excellent in school, asking questions. The cognitive skills assessment showed us a lot of deficiencies. Some, of course, that we were aware of with reading abilities, but I think the biggest surprise was the processing. Without this assessment, we would have no idea that processing was such an issue with her. I couldn't recommend it to enough people. We have a new child, a confident, happy child, and you can't buy that kind of happiness.
That was great.
Yeah.
Oh, here's the deal.
There it is.
I should have looked at the next slide, but that's okay. Today, you guys, we're going to offer for the first time ever a BOGO.
Yay!
It's a buy one, get one free. If you purchase in the next hour at LearningRxTest.com, you're going to have to go to LearningRxTest.com. You are going to get the test. You're going to get a consultation, a professional consultation, and we're throwing in an extra test. And this test can be used from anyone who's 5 years old to a senior.
So that means if you've got an aging parent or a grandparent that you just want to find out, hey, what's really going on? You think they're having memory struggles? This assessment will work equally well. It's designed for all ages. Again, it's online. You can take it right at home, any age. It is a consumable. So it's not like you're going to get the assessment and then have 2 or 3 of your kiddos take the same one. Once they're answering those questions online, it's used up. That's why it's a big deal right now that you can get a second one for the same price.
Yes, I take a test every single year. I can still say I'm in my mid-40s. I think one more year. I don't know.
Oh.
But I take this test every year because I understand how brain health and cognitive skills can impact me as an individual, and how that impacts a family as well.
Right.
And I want my brain healthy. As long as I'm alive, I want my brain healthy.
Yeah.
And remember that when you come to the consultation, we're going to talk about ways to improve skills. And I just want to take a moment for us to define what we define as effective brain training.
Okay.
So when we're talking about our brain training, what does that mean? So when you're looking for a solution, once you understand the cause, once you understand where you need to work, how do you find a solution? And so when you're looking at brain training as a solution, make sure, number one, it has peer-reviewed research.
Right.
Right. And what that means is that you've taken research or studies, or independent, researchers have taken studies, and they have given that information to a group of other professionals that have no invested interest in your research, and they go through it and they make sure the research is sound,
Right.
and that it's significant as far as like what it's showing. And then only several studies are published, right?
Right.
So you
Not
have
everything
to,
is accepted.
right. I mean, that they can peer review a bunch of things, but if they're publishing it, what they're doing is they're saying this science is sound.
Right.
This is sound science. This is good information for people to have. We want people to have that. So you must look for this peer-reviewed research, and there's different trainings that have the peer-reviewed research. You must also show a significant result,
Right.
because this research or this training can be very time intensive. It has an investment to it,
Right.
And so you want to make sure that you're going to get a significant result.
Right.
You want to make sure that it trains the core weak skills. So there's some programs that just like focus on maybe one skill, and maybe don't do that well, or they focus on knowledge, like tutoring would focus on knowledge. You want to make sure that you're training the right skills, and that you're training all the right skills. You're not just focused on one skill that's weak. You focus on all the skills are weak.
For your individual student or parent or whoever's working through it.
You want to make sure that the program you're going to work with has a history of successful outcomes. So this isn't new exciting program.
Right.
Make sure that there's some history, just like Elle, who went through the program over 10 years ago, and you're sort of able to watch, wow, not only did she improve her skills, but it's really changed the direction of her whole life. And you want to make sure that this, again, transfers to real life benefits. That's where a lot of the research is right now. That's actually your specialty.
Qualitative research.
Yes, it's called qualitative research, and it's making sure that you're not just making the little charts go up on the test.
Right.
But, you know, for me, my kid can do his work on his own.
Independence, confidence.
He's no longer impulsive. He's not bullying kids.
Self-control.
Yes. They're able to stay up with other classmates or maybe be ahead.
Improved relationships,
Yes.
improved life skills.
So you want to make sure all of those are components of the program. And for us with our training options, you know, if you're near a LearningRx center, we have that option. We have we're just researching right now with online training, getting very good results if we connect, if you have that human connection with someone online. And we even have PACE training or licensed training, parent training, if a center is not available and you like to be more into the training. So we have different training options because our ultimate goal, and I think even as parents, right, is we want to make sure our kids can learn and perform easier, faster, and better if they're struggling right now.
Yes.
So
we want that for next year, for school year next year. We want things to be easier, faster, better.
Amen. So this simple process that we're talking about, determine the cause, understand the cause is not the symptom that you see, determine the cause, and then find help. And don't, I mean, I understand the wanting to help your child with maybe more time on tests or something, but don't make that their life. You know what I mean?
Because it's not going to translate into good quality of life later.
Yeah.
We want to address the underlying
We want our kids to be able to compete. And we've trained well over 100,000 brains. We celebrated 100,000 back in 2017. And, you know, the testing fee that we have, it's a 1/10 of what it normally costs. We've added on the consultation. We've added on the additional test. And you can do this right from your home. So let me just go through sort of the steps of making sure you get this best test result that you can get, right? So once you go to learningrxtest.com and you purchase the test, you'll be taken to a consultation scheduler. So you'll schedule your consultation. Then about 2 to 3 days before the consultation, at the best time of the day for that child, you want to take the test. Okay, that will give us time to look over the test results and make sure that we're all set up to talk with you about them. The test comes, I think there's 7 different tests that you're taking. Each test comes with a test instruction. So if you did all the tests in one sitting, it would be about 45 minutes.
I think it's 10.
10 tests? Okay.
Because 1 in 10.
Yes, because we have different. Okay, she's right. Good thing she's here. But it can take 45 minutes if you do it all in one sitting. But you can take a test, and then, you know, once they're done, if they need to go to the restroom or grab a snack or something, you are able to take a break something in between of the instruction. Have them use headphones. Yes, especially for the auditory component of the test. You want them to use like a headphone. And it is best if you're able to sit right by them and just sort of observe how they're testing. You know, if a dog starts barking or something like that, then you understand, oh, that might, you know, it's just good to have that. And usually kids are sharpest probably around 10 or 11.
Depending on their age.
Yeah.
You know, my 14-year-old's probably sharper around 2.
2 p.m.?
Yeah. Well,
because
he wants to sleep till noon. I mean, it's summertime now, you know.
That study that suggested like teenagers shouldn't start learning till like 10 or something.
Yeah.
So I'm going a little bit off of that. Yeah. And remember, this is a limited offer. So if you purchase in the next hour, we're going to be watching, and anyone who purchases in the next hour will get an additional test. Okay.
Woohoo!
So that's only for people watching right now. You go to learningrxtest.com, special BOGO offer. Never done it before. May not do it again. And it's only for an hour. Okay, so what we want to do now, so this is our offer to you, and we understand that you may have questions about the testing. So I'm going to go ahead and bring out these questions. If you do have questions, you can still ask right now as I pull up these questions here.
Goodness, I don't know how you.
It's like missing, oh, it's right here.
Oh, there it is.
So go ahead, feel free to type in your questions. Happy to answer them. Are these tests able to be used to get IEP through schools, or would I still have to go to a psychologist? Or if they've been tested at a psychologist, do you use that test info? So you talked a little bit about all the testing you had been through, right? And why did you do all that testing?
My son had learning struggles. Goodness, way early on, kindergarten, first grade, we knew he was not going to be able to handle a normal classroom environment. He had a lot of medical issues too. He had epilepsy.
Yeah.
So we had to have an individualized education plan, IEP, for him. And the testing, there was testing that was required through the school district.
Yeah.
So we can't promise you that this assessment will be useful for an IEP. You will have to go through your school district.
Yeah, and remember, our overall goal with this testing is not a diagnosis. So this is not going to lead to a diagnosis. We're not trying to lead to special individualized learning plans.
No.
Our goal is to find out why they struggle so we can strengthen those skills. So hopefully I don't need an IEP plan. I don't need a diagnosis. I can help my kid right when they're struggling. And one of the things that happens is, you know, it takes a discrepancy between cognitive skills and knowledge to create those types of diagnoses, right?
Right.
So if you want to diagnose your child with dyslexia, and this is, I don't know if new things coming in have changed this, but they need to fail over a couple years.
Oh, and that's just awful. Why wait that long?
Right.
Ugh.
And if any of you have waited for testing in school, sometimes it can take a very, very long time. And that's not okay for me. I'm not here to wait several years to get help for my child.
Right.
I don't want them struggling. And I don't, you know, my youngest already, because of her reading difficulty, right, already felt a little bit of that. I don't want her to ever feel struggle like that. I want learning to be fun and easy. So our real goal is to find out why they struggle so that they no longer struggle. That's our goal. Yeah. So it's not really for IEP plans. It's not really for a diagnosis. It's to find out how I can help my child now.
But this could definitely be a piece of the puzzle, along with whatever the school is requiring. It's an incredibly great piece of the puzzle because that report is so easy to understand. Those charts, that is a fantastic thing to take to that IEP meeting to say, look, this is what I have learned about my child's underlying cognitive skills. And so that if you are where you immediately need to make compensation, I get it. I've been there.
Yeah.
I mean, the training and the process and the understanding, the growth, it doesn't happen instantaneously. And so if you need that process of compensation for a while, if you find out that your kid's auditory processing is tanked, then in a normal classroom environment where if a teacher is just lecturing all day long, your kid's not going to do well. And so that can be a great piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, although even within our training, once we know where to work, people will talk about real life change, probably about 6 to 8 weeks within the training period. So
fast.
It's not too long. And that's why we wanted to do this webinar now and have this offer now, because we have this summertime, which is the perfect time to get tested. Use the summer not as a time to have that slide, right, where research shows that there's this thing called a summer slide where they actually lose skill.
Right.
But use this time, this summer, to improve those skills. And this is my plan with my daughter this summer is I want to make her a super learner so that when she goes back to school next year, you know,
it'll be better.
She's
good. That's what I want for my little one too.
Yes.
Better
and again, go ahead.
Oh, better sleep, exercise, less screen time, and that cognitive testing so I can understand, and my little girl can understand what the underlying cognitive issue is, and she's going to have a better second grade than she had first grade.
Yes. And so, again, the test is $147. And, if you are an international viewer today, if you're on here from a different country and your child does not speak English, is not their first language, it's not a problem. This is one of the only tests available.
Excuse me.
Only tests available, this comprehensive testing in over 20 different languages. And so our biggest purchasers of the test actually speak Arabic or Spanish. We have Chinese, we have Filipino, we have Thai, we have Hindi. So, if you want to test someone, but there's always that translation piece to it, it's not an issue with this test. They can take the test in their own native language.
It's great. Somebody's already purchased one of them, so thank you. And just know that we'll be contacting you to make sure that you get that BOGO offer. But
yeah,
wait, there's more.
And they're standing by, right? So like I said, they're currently watching right now, so that people that purchase now are going to get those 2 tests and the consultation. And so someone asked if I could give a approximation of a learning plan cost. How often per week do clients come in? And it looks like Elle went in every day to training and just wanted to see if it was the same across the board. So that's a really good question. My kids, so once you understand their test result, right? So when they sit down with you and do a consultation, we're going to look at the test results. And then I had different concerns and requests for each one of my kids. Right. So the first group of kids that I took to the training, one had severe impulsivity issues. One had reading difficulties. And I'm happy to say on his school testing, the reason we took him in, he tested on his school testing at the 18th percentile in reading.
Oh, goodness.
And that was after 2 years of the school's help. And that's why maybe when I hear IP, I start thinking, oh no.
Right. But that could be short term.
Right, I understand. But in his experience, 2 years of trying to help him with reading knowledge, and that's when he tested at the 18th percentile. A year after doing this cognitive training first and then reading, 86th percentile in reading, and he is a sort of like Elle's story, right? He is a reader who reads for fun, and he loves to read. And so it's just one of those, you're like, great story. I had another child who was actually academically, she always did well. She loved learning. She excelled in school, but she hated to try new things. And so for her, I wanted her to stop whining and complaining, and I wanted her to be open to trying new things. Because a lot of times when you're really good at something, you want to be good at everything, and it's very frustrating for you, and so you don't do it. So going in, I had different concerns and different requests for each one of my kids.
Right.
Which, so you take the test results, you take your concerns as a parent and what you want to happen, and that's going to be a different program for each one of those people, because the programs are individualized to the type of result that you want. So
every day of the week, though, that would be more of the exception, right?
Yeah,
5 days a week.
It depends. It depends, but you do want an intense program. So you get, I can't remember how much more result. It's at least 3 times the result if you do the same amount of hours in a short span, in months. So instead of like years of tutoring, years of training to try to catch up or get the result, if you can take those same amount of hours and put them into a condensed period of time, maybe 6-7 months, and not only do you get a bigger, better result, but they get the result faster.
Okay, so if I'm understanding, so like if you have your kiddo in training 1 day a week, and that takes a year and a half,
Yeah.
you're not going to get as high quality of results, which makes sense to me because I think I go to the gym.
Yeah.
And I think if I go to the gym 1 day a week in a year and a half, it's not going to make much difference. But if I go to the gym 3 days a week for 6 months, 6 months later, I'm going to have made permanent changes in my body with
Right.
that kind of intensive training. And it's the same thing that can happen with the brain. The brain is a muscle that can be changed and improved and worked out just like the body.
Yes. So a normal program will be about 3 times a week, 90-minute sessions if the student can handle it, and for a course of time. And then the amount of hours depends upon what programs they need and what result you want. The cost of the training is different around the country, but it's very similar to any type of personal training where you have that human aspect to the training, you know, and you want the result very quickly. So,
and it is every LearningRx center is going to be slightly different because the cost of living is different all across the country. But my personal trainer that I worked with, we paid her $85 an hour. So not LearningRx, my personal trainer at the gym.
Oh, at the gym?
At the gym.
Yeah.
My personal trainer was $85 an hour. So, I mean, just keep that in mind.
Did you get in shape better?
Oh my goodness, I was recovering. My goodness, I was recovering from a car wreck.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It was awesome.
We talk about personal training, and you think about, because I would love to also physically be in better shape, but I do all the like do-it-yourselfer things, you know, like yoga videos or group training. And the great thing about that is I haven't really been good at following through on physical training. And so you can just sort of, you know, forget about it for a while.
Right.
But I didn't want to do that for my own kids. And actually I was training my kids, but something always got in the way, right? Whether it be dinner or a kid's sick or baseball game tonight or whatever it is. And so I needed, even as a master trainer, I needed the accountability and the human interaction at a center, to get the results that I wanted to get. So at one point I just said, kids, get in the car. We're going to LearningRx. And so I had 3 kids at the same time in the training because I knew there was a time commitment, but I just, you know, after you try, and even with all my knowledge, I just wanted the result. I just wanted them to move on and be more successful the next year. So thank you so much for joining us today. It has been a real pleasure. We will be sending you some of these articles afterwards along with this recorded webinar, but the BOGO offer is just for you. So again, you have 1 hour from now to get the BOGO offer. So thank you for joining us. Everybody take care. I hope you have a successful summer.
Yes.
And I will keep you up on my summer as well. So take care.